Austin, and I'm with the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for coming this evening, and thank you for all of you at home. I'm hoping it's going to be a good and informative event. On behalf of the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce, I welcome all that have attended tonight at the Bayshore Community Centre. And just to let you know, this is live stream, and it's being broadcast by our local Rogers TV. One of the most important ballots you will cast is for the municipal election on October 24th. The purpose for tonight is to get to know our candidates better and to hear them articulate their platforms.
Next to speak is Jon Farmer.
Hi folks, my name is Jon Farmer. I'm running to be a city councillor for the very first time. I love Owen Sound, and there's so much to love about our city, but in 2022 we're also facing some pretty significant and complex challenges, from housing scarcity and an affordability crisis to a drug poisoning epidemic, infrastructure deficits, fiscal constraints, and a climate crisis. City Council can't address all of these complex challenges on its own or single-handedly, but I believe firmly that City Hall needs to be an active partner in identifying and finding solutions to every one of these challenges. The greatest possible solutions to our problems are going to benefit the greatest number of people. These problems are complex, but it's possible to make decisions so that everyone can live in Owen Sound with dignity, safety, and equity regardless of age, income, ability, or anything else. We have the tools to address our challenges, but putting those tools to use will require a city council that's willing to assess the cost and benefit of every decision with financial responsibility in mind, but also measuring the social and environmental costs and benefits. We need a council that's willing to collaborate, not just with other tiers of government, but also with the experts and the people who live here in Owen Sound. We need a council that can ask the right questions, understand different points of view, and work through disagreements together. Find best practices from other places and think about how the decisions that we make today are going to impact not just the next budget year, but the next 10 years and the next 100 years and generations to come. I want to be part of the people and part of the team that's addressing these challenges, and I'm running because I also have skills to contribute. My background is in community collaboration. I've also worked as an entrepreneur in freelance writing and facilitation, and I believe that the quality of our decisions is based on the process that we use to come to them. And we can only do that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jon Farmer. We are going to move on to some submitted questions. These are questions that came from the audience tonight. We will limit responses as we can for timing. A reminder that if anyone has had points that you didn't get to make tonight, you will get a closing statement to make those points. As of right now, we're looking at about 90 seconds. We'll increase that time if it makes sense. This question is for the councillors, and we'll limit responses to 5 here. What are your priorities to address the climate crisis, and how will you address them on council? Jon Farmer?
I'm a big fan of an approach called multi-solving, and that says you look for one intervention that's going to solve multiple problems. We can't separate the climate crisis from any of our other challenges right now. That's going to impact, like we've seen 2 hurricanes in the last 2 weeks that are causing devastation in different parts of North America. Last year we saw BC flooded and then burst into flame. We are not immune from these changes, and the way that we address the climate crisis is by making sure that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that what we build and how we build it now is taking into account that the climate is changing, that severe weather is going to be more prevalent, and that the way that we can help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, make our communities more resilient for food security, for water security, for transportation, and with all of that comes the economy. You can't separate the climate. It's got to be an aspect of every decision that we make.
Thank you, Jon Farmer. We'll move on to a question for councillors. We'll again limit the number of responses. The question is, do you have any plans or thoughts to increase opportunities for youth to engage in positive activities and minimize risk? Jon Farmer?
I was young enough to, during the last election, to qualify for a youth grant from the Laidlaw Foundation. They qualified youth as under 29, and it was called Youth Ask Grey Bruce. We collected questions from people between the ages of 14 and 29. because we recognized, as people who were that age ourselves, that our voices were not necessarily reflected in the political process. Other communities do that, like Carol mentioned Erin Eldersley, but communities like Toronto have long had youth engagement committees, because as those of us who are losing our hair might no longer know exactly what youth want and need, but our community spaces are a prime asset to allow for that unstructured youth opportunity. The city can't run everything, but the city can provide the framework that can cultivate those opportunities. Even something like, I know the local futsal club was struggling to find gym space for this coming winter season. The city can't make that happen for them, but the city can be a relationship builder, and by connecting with youth to find out what they need, by investing in public spaces. The question mentioned risk, and I don't know whether that's implying that youth are a risk to our community or that youth are at risk in our community. And as someone who works for CMHA, I know that youth are at risk when they are isolated, when there aren't opportunities, and when they don't have the chance to meet each other and participate in the community. When we create those opportunities, people are involved, they're engaged in their community, and like me, they end up moving back here to have their own kids.
Thanks, Jon Farmer. Next group of councillors will be Jon Farmer, Marion Kepke, and Alan Douglas. You'll have 90 seconds each to answer this question. With the increased focus on the improvement to the downtown core, the River District, Council has a responsibility to ensure that we have a safe downtown for merchants and pedestrians alike. What do you hope to do to address concerns around the safety of the downtown? And for this one, we will start with Jon Farmer.
What we mean when we say safety is not the same thing for every person. The county's community safety and well-being plan, which spans both counties that was developed, highlighted that people's perceptions of safety are very different if you're 32 and 6 feet tall compared to if you're 88 and use a walker to get around. One of the things that makes people feel less safe downtown is partly not knowing folks. I live downtown, I work downtown, I often walk home late because I facilitate groups one night a week at CMHA. I feel safer around the people that I know, and that's true for everyone. When you know your neighbors, you feel safer with them, you want to care for them, you want to support them. I think that by bringing more people into downtown for events, that helps to increase exposure. I also think that the city has a lot of tools at its disposal to shape how community spaces are structured, because there are people who live downtown who are poor, who might not wear a button-down shirt, and who are sitting outside in the summertime because that is their front yard. And yet, if that makes people feel uncomfortable because they're not familiar with people who live in that socioeconomic bracket, that's not a problem with safety, that's a problem of knowing our neighbors and being good neighbors to each other. So we've got to build those relationships. The design of community space is part of that, echoing what Jasmine said with bathrooms, water fountains, etc.
Thank you, Jon Farmer. Next up, it's Jon Farmer.
We've heard so much tonight, and many of us are on the same page with what the problems are. What we're not necessarily on the same page with as candidates or as a community is how we address those problems, or in some cases, why we need to address those problems. I come from the perspective through my facilitation and collaboration work that the way that we come up with the best possible solution is to get as many diverse voices around the table so that when we're talking about what makes quality of life in Owen Sound good, we're not just thinking about one population or another. We're not just saying, well, what do the youth need, and what do the seniors need, and what do the rich need, and what do the poor need? So many of our needs are shared. We are raised up by the same types of resources, but we only get to those best kind of decisions if there are more opportunities for public input. We can do that in a variety of ways with task forces and even more conversations like this. Why do we only gather once every 4 years for something like this? We've missed low-hanging fruit as a community for responses. Tomorrow's the day of National Truth and Reconciliation. We still haven't adopted the calls to action for municipalities. I've got more to say than I can say in 30 seconds, which is why the first thing I did when I threw my name in was put a website up. Please visit electjonfarmer.com for more about who I am, why I'm running, and what I want to help facilitate in and for Owen Sound.
Thank you, Jon.